little island called Crete, the Mediterranean. In the city, there was Heraklion. And it's a port city, a very busy area. I was born in 1912. I think my mother and father were married about 1910. And I never got to know my father there at all. He left in 1914 and came to this country. And I really didn't get to know my father at all, other than seeing pictures of him. Well, the main reason that my dad left the island was because of the conflicts that were being created throughout the whole of Europe. That's when he endeavored to make arrangements and come to this country, because this country was recruiting laborers. They had to build railroads, they had to build other things. As a result, it was an open sesame type of a thing here, and it was very easy for him to sign up and come to this country. My mother was very anxious to meet up with him here because he described it as a country of freedom, liberty, and everything good. Nothing like it was in the island of Crete. So my mother was daydreaming every day, what a beautiful place to be in. No wars, no conflicts, no jealousies of any sort, just to live in heaven or peace.
My name is Leo Oworski, born in Independence, Ohio. I'm raised in Europe, in Poland. I grew up in a village named Zajamcze. The town was Wrocławiec. It's in Warsaw State. We were just farmers. Dad was a fisherman off-season. You tried to get away from everything, because if the Germans came in, they took some. When the Russians came in, they took some. You was always in a battlefield, and the Warsaw State was known for it. You got rationing from the government. This one time, my cousin and I, it was winter time, we went for bread. Well, we got up about 3 o'clock in the morning, put the wrappers and everything in your feet in burlap sacks and go over there and sit till your turn comes to get bread. Now, this happened not once, it happens a lot of times. We were just a couple people away from the window, and they shut it down. They said, there's no more bread. You had to come back home and try again next day.
Both my mother and father were the two youngest in their family, and everything said that America's streets were paved with gold, and I think that's one of the reasons they came along with a lot of others at that time. My father served the 3 years mandatory for military service in the Hungarian National Guard. My dad left in 1912 for America, fleeing the induction, possibly, of all National Guards of Hungary into the German army.
I was born in Polish, in Smiatic. I was born in 1907. It was a bad time to leave. They burned the city up. The Russians burned the city. And we were just living in one room, everybody together. Well, it was bad. You didn't have nothing to eat. You had to go to the villages to work. My mother was a dressmaker, so she went to the villages and she worked for the week. And then we used to come home. I went with her. Come home and bring home food for the children to eat for the week.
I was born in Poland, Warsaw, Poland, in 1898, November the 3rd. At that time, there was a lot of things going on yet, if I remember correctly. Jewish people were afraid to walk out and go out. There was, as far as I can remember, they didn't like the Jewish people there. And they did try to have them go or leave or anything. You were scared. We were all scared. Great big Cossacks come into the house with their big coats and their fur hats and their guns, and they tore everything apart. So that's one of the reasons my father, too, knew. He heard of like his brother that came to America. Why, he told him how nice it's here. To come here, no one is your boss. You can do as you please. And then my father decided he better go to America because everybody was going to America. I guess he saved enough money, and he sent us tickets. He left 5 little girls when he left, but one died while he was in Cincinnati. This was.
I was born in 11 June 1925 in Czechoslovakia. I left the Czechoslovakia after I heard it was a very bad situation there, 1950. Lots of young people was put in jail, and the life was not so good. And for me, I really enjoyed the freedom.
My grandfather told my father stories about America. I think he was in Pennsylvania somewhere, and he told him that it was hard work, but he says, at least over there you get a job and you'll always have bread to eat. So he urged him that someday to go. But my father got married then. I was 6 years old then when he finally decided that now's the time to leave. They would not let you go here unless you were sure that you weren't going to starve. So he wrote to a couple of his friends, and one of his friends sent him an affidavit that he would take care of him. He lived in Ashtabula on a farm, but he also had 4 or 5 children already then, a Mr. John Minchek. But another friend in Pennsylvania, his buddy, sent him $1,000, no IOU, nothing, just sent him $1,000 check. He said, this, Frank, is for you for the trip. He said, and you pay me someday if you have money, or if I never get it back, it's for you.
Well, growing up in Slovenia, I was poor. My dad came to America in 1913 and left my mother alone over there with 2 children, and one wasn't even born yet. And it was hard because it was the wars, and my father couldn't get the money to bring us to America because till the war was finished, and the war was finished in 1917, and then he could have got us here if he would have enough money to bring us here.
In the First World War, so the Italian, they needed help in the front line. So I joined myself. I was 17 years old, and I went there just the same. That scared me the war, tell you. I come to my uncle, my brother, Negrin, and left Italy in January, but I got here in February, 1921, 1920, I mean. Well, thought we come to America, we make a living, just like everybody else. Them years it was a different world. Dad sent money to Mom, and he sent the tickets for the ocean liners. And we had to sell everything there was. Then we got this on the boat. I just remember it left the port, and I got seasick. I lost my place where I ate, and I didn't get well till 5 miles away from Liberty, Statue of Liberty. That's the boundary line.
My brother had trouble with his head, and I knew if I won't help him out and change tickets, he'll never get there. So when in dancing, when they examine you, they make 2 piles. A good pile that you could go on the boat, and 1 pile that you have to stay to go and see a doctor. So I changed tickets with him. I moved up to his pile, and I gave him my ticket, and I took the bed ticket. So I stayed 10 days there, and I went there to the doctor, and the doctor says to me, how come they rejected you? Nothing wrong with you. I said, well, I was sick. I didn't feel good. My brother took my ticket and he left with my parents, and I came 10 days later. It was nice. We went on the boat. They treated us real nice on the boat.
Oh, it was very beautiful, the ship. We had a lot of fun over there. That's where I made a lot of friends on the ship.
We waited a whole week before the ship came in, and it was an Italian ship, and it was called Pannonia. And we had to show our passport, which was a Greek passport, and our papers. Somehow they took them, and they gave us new papers entirely, as we were, like we were Italian citizens or something. They gave us Italian papers to board this ship. And when we boarded the ship, we found, God, there were 3 tiers of beds. We were in the 4th class of the ship. That's way down where the engines were practically. The whole trip in itself took a whole month on that boat. It was a slow process of getting here, and it was annoying because the food wasn't to our liking, and the conditions were not the best.
Back in Slovakia, they packed just enough a change of clothing and pillows, I remember, a large feather bed, and they rolled it up into one big roll. And then we had suitcases. They were the size of small suitcases, but they were made out of straw. But my father went into Prague when he went for the last time. He brought me back. I remember it was a brown plaid dress and a brown striped sweater that I have still on my visa there. He told us this is the way they dress in America. So I think I wore that dress all the way to America.
What I hear about America, I thought was everything covered up with gold. It was beautiful. In my memory, Papa was in America. I was but 7 years old when he left. And I was 17 when I come to America. I didn't know my father. It was just a strange, you know, you think everything different the way you come. But my father sent the money to my mother after he got his citizenship paper and his papers together so he could have brought us in this country. Then the money never reached my mother. So then my mother got the papers and we went to Trieste, and then it was a port in Trieste to go to America.
My father was telling us we're going to go on big, big ocean. And we thought, I remember I thought, oh, it's going to be like a river, you know, the ship is going down, there are going to be homes on each side, and we're going to be waving to people. And when we got out, about 2 days, all we saw was water, water. We didn't see any ships, nothing. There were many people on board. Most of them were mothers with children, plus the parents if the father came back for them, so then there was a whole family. One, I remember, was a woman that her husband sent for her, and she had twin girls, and we played with those. I played with those twin girls. They were about my age. They were about 7 or 8 years old. And she was coming to America, and one night, that little girl, we were about halfway here, the little girl got very sick. She ran a high fever, and her mother had some cognac that she was bringing to her husband to Canada. They were going to Canada. So she gave the little bit of cognac to that little girl, and she put her to sleep that she'll sleep. Now in the morning when she got up, when she woke up, here the little girl was dead in bed. Here she looks, and the cognac had a lot of the cognac was missing out of the bottle. She figured out that while she was sleeping, the little girl didn't feel good. She got up and she took some of that cognac, and that killed her. So then they had to bury her at sea. In America, the first thing we saw, they said, land, land. Everybody, even the sick people, all got dressed up. They made them get dressed, and they said, this is the last day we're going, and we're going to sight land. So the first thing was, of course, the Statue of Liberty and all these high buildings, like buildings of New York behind it. And I still remember when we went up on deck there, we were all watching for it as we got near. Of course, the ship slows down then. And my mother with the other woman, everybody, Columbus, Columbus. They thought it was a statue of Columbus because they didn't know anything about the Statue of Liberty.
Well, the first thing I saw was the harbor, the tall buildings, which was amazingly. I wondered at that time whether they were made out of wood, and all they do is put a match and burn them down and build new ones. And the impression was absolutely outstanding. I felt like I was in a different world entirely. Never saw anything like it in my life.
And everybody was standing by the rail and waiting. And when we came to New York, that was the most beautiful thing. You never can forget. See Statue of Liberty. When we see Statue of Liberty, then we know we are in America.
I'm not an immigrant from Europe. I was born on Ellis Island and then was shipped back, and it was 3 years later that I then came with my mother the second time across the ocean. Papers had to be in order. I'm assuming that my mother was anticipating that when she got to Ellis Island off of the boat, that maybe my father might have been there. Well, Ellis Island is a long way from the Battery Park, and he wasn't there. Everything wasn't in place. If you didn't accept you at Ellis Island, they put you back on the same ship, and the trip back was free.
When we entered Ellis Island, it was full of rails and gates and bars, and I kept thinking, my teacher told me this is the land of freedom and liberty, and to come to this territory and find myself in a big prison compound was most unusual, and it showed on me as the days went on, because we stayed at Ellis Island for quite some time.
And when we got off at Ellis Island, well, they shepherded us into this large hall. I just remember there were cages and like railings or whatever it was that we had to go single or double file. And they stopped there and they asked you, and of course the father takes care of everything. He had all the papers and everything. They were all immigrants. They all looked scared, and I remember I wasn't scared. I didn't know why they were scared. They all looked frightened and huddled together, and because most of them were wives with children. There were many, many.
And I saw at that time when they put you in a room with a lot of people, then when they called your name, you had to go into a separate room and they examined you from head to toe. But they were very, very strict. That's when we heard people crying and screaming because they were being sent back, or some of them didn't have no money, or some of them didn't have no one to pick them up. That is still in my mind, and I hear all those people.
The girls went with their mothers. I remember it was to the left side, and the boys went with their fathers to the right side. They gave us each a sheet that we had to take our clothes off for examination, and we had a woman doctor. And I remember we went into this cubby hole, and I don't want to take my clothes off, and I cried, and my mother says, don't cry, I'm with you. And everything was okay, but they examined you from the top of your head. They look inside your scalp, everything, all the way to your toes, everything. And then my father was on the other side with my little brother, who was 4 years old, and they did the same thing to them. And if you didn't pass, if they thought you had something wrong with you physically, they send you upstairs for x-rays, I guess, or whatever. And a lot of them were sent back. We saw people crying, and that what happened is maybe the child was sick or the wife was sick, and they all had to go back.
But there was a nice doctor that let Mom through. She had sores in her eyes. He said, if you pass, the rest of it, you're at home. You're going to enter United States of America. And she did.
You stay in line, you're nervous waiting till they get to you. And finally they get to you and they say, you're okay. You thank God that you're okay. You could leave. I stayed in overnight because it was a Jewish holiday and there was no doctor to examine you. So I came in the first day of our New Year's.
The food was not to our particular bud tastes. It was different, had no spices, but for entertainment, they had concerts, they had American entertainers come into Ellis Island every day, weekends, to entertain the immigrants that were there. But the most unusual thing about our stay in Ellis Island was our name. Because when you pronounce our name in Greek, it's pronounced with an emphasis on the second last syllable, Sinti Hakis, see? And that's the only language my mother understood. Now my father was already there, and he applied for us to be released. But they were pronouncing our name twice a day. They would announce the names on the PA system, and my mother couldn't understand a word of it. As a result, we stayed there for 2-3 weeks, I believe. We could see my father from the fourth floor of the building. Finally, one Greek interpreter comes in and talks to my mother. He says, Sophia, your name has been called every day for the last 10 or 12 days. Why didn't you answer? She says, I never knew they called my name. So he immediately took her down the registration office and said, this is Mrs. Senahikis. And they pronounced the name differently than we did. So as a result, they started the papers for our release from Ellis Island. But it was a very difficult picture, very unharmonious illustration of where the freedoms and the liberties were founded. And I was somewhat disappointed. I wonder if we're going to go through life here the same way, being in institutions of this sort the rest of our life. Because I was a young man, 7 years old, I couldn't understand what was really happening.
You know, some people think that you just came here in a boat and 5 minutes you'll be out, you know, and some people was not really happy much. I remember that day I was a little bit tired that day. My friend picked me up and I say, take a rest, and I stay with him and I sleep for more, and I was sleeping any day in a year, yeah.
Well, after a while, we were told to go in another room. Then all of a sudden, my mother heard her name being called, and we were told to go in another room. We went, and there was my father and my uncle there. I didn't remember my uncle, of course. They were standing there, and of course, we came, and then we went to Brooklyn in New York.
After Ellis Island, that's where I remember this man, a social worker. He came and he introduced himself to my father and to us, and he said, I will take you from now. He says, I will take you for a meal, and we will go, and I will put you on the train. He wanted to know where we were going. And my father says, here, I'm going to this John Minchek's in Ashtabula. So the man went to the telephone, and he couldn't get him. They told him that the phone was disconnected. Well, we didn't know why. So then the man asked my father, he said, do you have any more names? And my father pulled out a book. He had a lot of names with all kind of Krayani that he was going to visit. So here at the top was Charles Palsa. And he says, well, he has a store, but he also has a big family. But he has a store maybe and a car. Maybe he'd be able to come and pick us up. So they called Charlie Palsa up, and he said, yes, he would take us. So the man talked to him in English, and he told him that we would arrive the next morning. It was about 7 o'clock because the traffic was very sparse, I remember. And it was Christmas Eve. We had good food here. I ate my first wieners, and I remember ketchup, Heinz ketchup. On that first day that we were there, Mrs. Palscher gave us hot dogs. And I put that ketchup on. Boy, did that taste good. I loved, and to this day, I like Heinz ketchup.
Well, we was dressed up as European people, kids, and Mom. We got our street cover. We came to Foreman and Broadway about 3 o'clock afternoon on a Sunday. The show they let out, and a bunch of kids saw us. We had the biggest parade that your eyes would see. And they only called us Euro Guinea. Guinea, 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 and all the way to the place we came. I thought it would be friendly, you know, like in Europe, you know what I mean? When we didn't have nothing, you ain't got nothing, let's make something out of it. But it wasn't. I got disappointed. It's a thing is that I'm American, you're a foreigner. I'm better than you.
We landed at the lakefront where the stadium is now. It used to be the Pennsylvania Railroad Station one time. We landed there, and God, we had so many relatives at the station to greet us. That was fantastic. One of them had a restaurant up the road from the Pennsylvania Railroad Station. He wanted us to stop there first and have some refreshments before we go on to where we were to live.
Yeah, the first day in America was very exciting. Like I said, we came to the Spilker Avenue, and the house was full of people. Everybody was having a good time, you know, drinking, accordion was playing, and we were tired. I said, dear Lord, I said, I hope these people would go home and so we could rest. We opened up this room, the lights on, that was on it, was okay. But as soon as we closed up the light, and the bugs would start crawling out of the walls. Bed bugs, they call them. I never seen a bed bugs in Europe, but I seen it in America. And I said to my mother, I said, Mama, tu smo prinesli America uši pastenice. I said, Mom, I said, I came with the lice in America and bed bugs. And my mother said, Bobulsha, Albinca, Bobulsha. That means in Slovenia, I'll be better. As long as we are all together, are under one roof. And we were happy because we didn't see what we expect to see, but we were in America.
So many people I met, the people that came to America, that it was hard to settle, I guess, for them. It was very hard. Especially you came from homes, they had nothing, so they came here, they're hoping to get something, but some people did, some didn't.
Well, when I was going to go to Akron, that's where my brother was, my uncle, and other people of the family. Nobody met me in Akron. I asked the people, but I had the address on the piece of paper, and I used to ask them to go this way, and this way, and that's the way I got to the place.
My cousin put us on the train, and my cousin here came and picked us up, and he had the rooms ready for us. We lived on Woodland Avenue, on the Cedar. It was all Jews, all refugees. Most of the refugees were there that we came on one boat together.
The city was kind of old. There was old houses there, and but I looked around, there were a lot of kids, and when we went to church, we saw a lot of kids there, so I was at ease that I'll have someone to play with. We were like a novelty there because some of those kids didn't know how to talk English. They understood a few words from their grandparents. Many of them had their grandmother or grandfather living with them, so they were kind of intrigued with us, and they were all anxious to show us the different things where otherwise we didn't encounter anything except a few that called us, I remember, greenhorns, but, well, we were greenhorns.
On Etna Road, We lived there for about a year. Then we moved on 72nd off Etna Road. We lived there about a year. It was a working man's paradise. They had laundries, and it was like a family. On a Sunday, they get the graphophone, they used to play records, they danced, they ate, they drank. Everybody was happy. And if I can say it, it's not like today. It isn't. That was all Polish, 100% Polish. Around Warsaw, it was neighborhood, it was all mostly Polish. Now you take like 55th, it was a boundary line of the Bohemian people. Broadway in 78, it was Irish way down. It was, everybody looked in the boundaries they had.
Oh, it's very closely knit. Everybody knew everybody. And we were unique in that myself and my family, I mean mother and father and my two brothers, living at West 30th Street, had around us neighbors, mostly German, 80%. There was about 10% Hungarians and 10% Slovenians that lived in the block in a 10-square block, 35th Street to 25th Street, from Detroit Street to Monroe Street.
My father used to go to the coffee house. There were 4 or 5 coffee houses. He used to drink a cup of Demetas Turkish coffee or Greek coffee. It's as thick as molasses. And you sit there all day and you play cards, and you get away with just a little cup of coffee. Didn't cost you more than a dime, but you sat there and occupied a seat, and you could play cards with the others as well. And this was a sort of atmosphere that was in Greece. I didn't like it particularly, but my father enjoyed it because he grew up in that kind of conditions. And my sister and I always complained that we were too close to the Greek community there, and we thought we should get away, and the congestion in the area of the marketplace was so great. So after a year or two on Woodland and Carnegie, we moved into the area of Professor Street, which was a block and a half away from all the onion domes of Byzantine churches and European churches. You more or less felt at home being in that area because you were seeing a little of Europe all the way through.
When we went back as a baby in 1913, we went back to Grandma's house in Romania, and they spoke Romanian. My mother didn't speak very much Hungarian to me. And when I came over here, when I was 3, I was still talking Romanian. My father didn't like it, so he also made me then go to the Hungarian school, and of course, in America, we followed the Hungarian program all the way through. It was a mixed marriage, even to a further extent that my mother was Greek Catholic and my father was Roman Catholic. And as the head of the household, he took over, and Roman Catholic St. Emmerich's was important. My mother did, as I faintly recall, and on being with her on a number of occasions, went to the Romanian Catholic Church down on Bridge Street, about a mile out of the inner city.
It was hard to be a Jew. They had a little Jewish synagogue, just about 30 families, but they also had about 50 families of Reformed Jews. They were called the German Jews. They came mostly from Germany. They kept by themselves. They were they thought they were above us, not to associate with the Orthodox Jews.
I'm Orthodox, strictly Orthodox. I make my meat all kosher like I did, and I use a Orthodox butcher shop, the same like my mother used to use.
Well, the church was all white inside because it was the decoration had not begun yet, And it was a church much bigger than the ones I was used to attending in Greece. It was a very, very large edifice that created a cathedral type of impression to me. And it wasn't as large as it is today. The name of the church was the Annunciation. I helped the pastor at the time paint some of the icons that were over the altar. They were 22 by 28s, and they were on canvas primarily.
St. Mark, it was a huge stone church. It was stone, and they had these huge windows, all these colored windows with the saints in. And they had lights in all the arches. The lights, when they would just light them up for Easter, Christmas, something special. Then they would light up all the lights. Services were always in Slovak. Mass was in the morning at 8 o'clock. I remember, and all the children from school would go to the Mass. And it was in Slovak, and that's how a lot of us kept up the Slovak. I went to school there right after Christmas. And the nuns were so good. I mean, the Sister Clotilde, God rest her soul, she stayed after school with me to teach me so I would know, so I would catch on to read the books. Okay. And holidays, we liked the holidays. The next holiday was Easter. And we found out that all these ladies did it just like in Europe, because they came here and they make pasca and kobasi and all that stuff, put it in a basket, and we would go downstairs in the hall under St. Martin's and under the church, and Father Horak would come and he would bless every basket there. I remember everything smelled so good, and we could hardly wait till the 6 o'clock bell would ring, because after 6 o'clock, Holy Saturday, we were allowed to eat from the basket.
The Christmas was outstanding. The Easter, the altar boys, you know, they had a parade when the big domes were, like Holy Communion, Christmas, Easter. You couldn't believe it. It isn't like this now. It's just simple. You go to church, that's about it. I couldn't believe it.
The church was all right. See, but I didn't understand what was the church of all about. See, because in your country, they don't ask you to give money. And over here, I don't know that I have to support the schools, and I have to support this and that. So I don't know. It says, why they ask for money for? That's why I was against it. See, because in your country, they never ask you for money. Only if you want to give somebody something yourself, you give, but they don't ask. They don't go every Sunday with the basket around collecting money, and then they give you a piece of paper. You have to send them in with 10% of what you made. I couldn't understand it.
The name of the church, 61st in St. Clair, St. Vitus Church. I got married 1927. Father Ponikvar married me, and was beautiful. It's the most modern church, beautiful statues, beautiful. You can't prescribe it, so beautiful it is. You have to see it to believe it, how beautiful the church. And I still go there every Christmas, every Easter, every time they got some big doings, I go to the church of St. Vitus and thank the dear Lord.
Trinity Lutheran is where I wound up in first grade. It was a German Lutheran church, a German Lutheran school. We had German in school every day. We even read from German books. Across the street from Trinity Lutheran was St. Mary's Catholic German church. 2 blocks away was St. Patrick's, which was a Irish church. St. Emmerich's, behind the market house, was Hungarian. My mother and father attended St. Emmerich's. I went along with them until about the 7th or 8th, 9th year of my life, and then I was attending here. And by 1927, when I was 14, I was confirmed into the Lutheran faith at Trinity Church. Insurance fraternal groups were very popular at that time, and my mother and father belonged to one of each of those. One was for the men and one was for the ladies, and they did wear their badges every time they would go to a funeral or an affair of some kind or a meeting of some kind. And those were important because just as the church was important, it seems to me that the fraternal groups in the area, there was the singing societies, one almost on every other street, it seemed like, that had what you would call choir groups. One was Hungarian, the other one was German, just as in Trinity, the music heritage goes way back to 1860.
What the lodge did for immigrants, we got, benefits, like you got $2 a day if you're sick, or if you die, $500 benefits, or $1,000. We used to call it pogreb. That's for you when you died, so they don't have to collect for you. Because Slovenian people are very proud. I was in America all these years. I never was in relief. Never got a dime from Uncle Sam. They still has it. We still got that tradition. Customs, well, a lot of prayers and good food. Of course, Slovenians are known for good food, And we'd even take the baskets to blessing for Easter. We'd taken over here at the Holy Cross, where I belong now. But when we were at St. Vitus or St. Mary's or St. Christine's, and they still got the same tradition, but it's not too many people believe on that anymore. When I do that, my children think that grandma, something's wrong with her. Yeah, they say, or my daughter says, Ma, when are you going to quit? You know what? I say, hey, never forget what your great-grandparents teach you, because a tradition is a good tradition, no matter how bad it sounds to you, but it's good.
Well, it was in the European world after I came home from school here, because we didn't talk English, we didn't talk German. I wouldn't dare to use because my father would be very objectionable. Everything was Hungarian there. Although we did branch out, if anything, as I went through school and got involved with more and more the English language, and while Dad and Mother were trying to become citizens, I would try to help them with civics. Got to a point that he knew civics better than I did, because he and my mother would go to the classes over at Carnegie West Branch Library, and sure, they knew the makeup of the House of Representatives and the Senate better than I did almost, and I was getting it in school. Civics was very important to them. Something that really stood out, civics in Europe, which is state and country, and your church is paramount at all times.
Well, Mom cooked Polish way. We had duck soup, we had pumpkin soup, we had heart soup, kidney soup, beef soup. Almost every day for Dad, he was working in a foundry, it's a lot of dust. So she had for Dad beef broth, a piece of meat, about that much. But every day we had Polish meals. Bread, there was nothing thrown away. And I forgot to tell you something. The biggest thrill we got when the Mom and Dad went to town in Poland and brought us a hard roll. That's the biggest thrill we ever had, because we didn't have any. Like Kaiser roll. We were waiting like for candy. And you didn't give it to your brother. You hid it. If you didn't eat it, you hid it. So you'll have it next day. And over here, what they do? They throw it away, wasting. My children are brought up the hard way. They know what a piece of bread means. And I thank Lord.
This was my mother's. She made this by hand. It's all made by hand, every stitch. Before she got married, when she was single, she made this. And I have a picture of her wearing this. And this is her rosary that she got when she joined the Fidelity. This is a silk ribbon that she had in her hair in 1919 before she was married. After a girl married, she took her braid out and she never wore ribbons in her. She always wore a bun, or now they get the hair cut short. And all the other clothes that my mother had, my cousins in Europe, she left it for them and they wore them out. So when I went back, this is all I got, was the vest they had left over there. But they were very poor there. Even if you knew several jobs like my father, but you had nobody to sell it to.
I still very active in the dancing with my wife, and my wife is the president of the Czech and Slovak Cotillion Ball, bringing the costumes and these dances in a ball ready, and give the young generation have something thinking about he be proud his grandparents or the parents came from Czechoslovakia.
I still, every once in a while, we come across somebody. Oh, did you live on 61st Street? She said, I says, yes, I did. So we start talking, reminiscing. Do you know this one and that one? And I tell you the truth, it's gotten so that I don't remember some of those people anymore. How long can you remember? And when they found out I was Jewish, oh, I never liked a Jew till I met you. You know, one of these things. You can't forget those things. It's silly to think about it, because thank God I have some beautiful Gentile friends, and some of the families that my children married into, they're just beautiful too. Well, I believe in Judaism because I don't like some of the things that some of my children do. You know, they don't observe it or anything like they should, and so that hurts me. But there's nothing I can do. But I love them just the same, each and every one.
Well, after I saw how important our heritage was, what culture and educational history we were brought up on, I said, oh, I'd love this. We had such a rich background, I'd like to keep it. It was because of my father and mother, really. They were brought up in that culture. They knew the history of the island. They knew our history of our background, our relatives and so forth on. And every day she would tell us a new story that she remembered about the old country. So she told me a story one time when she was a little girl, about 4 years old. Her father was plowing the land. And as he was plowing the land, a bunch of coins came up. And she started picking the coins up and playing with them. And she filled a whole pail of coins. And unbeknownst to her, they were 3,000, 3,500 years old. And she also got some pottery. And this is the most fascinating thing of all. She had this one little piece of pottery that was given to her by the family. And this is over 33,000 years old, I would say. And I don't know what it was used for, but it seemed like it had decorations. I think it was used for spices or oil or vinegar to pour into the salad or something of that sort. It wasn't a toy, really, to play with. It was made for a purpose, and for that reason she relished this very much. And before she died, she says, she gave this to me as something to remember our heritage with.
I made good. My family is very nice. I got very nice children, grandchildren. Oh, you have celebration when it's my birthday, when it's their birthday. and so forth, the anniversary, and I had too many.
We went to a wedding, so my son and daughter-in-law tells me that we're going to visit Ellis Island. That'll be your birthday present. So I thought it was a very nice birthday present. Of course, I was excited. It's a new building, and they've got everything on. They have museums. They have an atrium, you know, that you can look down and see all the things that's going on downstairs. And there's so much to see there, really. You could stay there. I'd like to go back someday when I'm alone and just be able to get around and see the different things. Now, they had one place was piled up real high, luggage that people brought from Europe. They left it there.
Oh, I've been there on invitation once or twice. This last one was at the dedication and the reopening of it in September 2 years ago. My brother and I went back. There was quite a momentous occasion. It was more significant to me than it was to him because he was born right down here on 29th Street in the inner city, right close to where we are here on West 30th. He was impressed, but it just meant a great deal more to me that what my mother must have gone through at the age of 18 or 19 or whatever she was, and the youngest one of her family to flee and come to this country. And he spoke about that. He says, Mom must have had her hands full.
We were the country where I come from was really bad over there. And then we always was waiting, you know, the change of our lives. You just dream, you know, it was something that you like I said, you can't explain it to nobody when you're grown up. Because when you're in bad shape, you don't think of how bad it is. You're always saying, well, babulcha, Mama say, babulcha, it's going to get better. And that's in your mind. And when I come to America, of course, it got better and better.
I came here for freedom, for me already. You know, I was a refugee for better life and better freedom, yeah.
I didn't go after a dream, it's just that it happened. And I have such a beautiful family, friends, and I couldn't have dreamed all this. And like I remember once when they were all here for Christmas, there was 23 of us, and I thought, oh, if they could just see me now.
America gave the opportunity to work for a living. Over there, you couldn't go. My mother used to go away with me to the villages to work, to serve for the Gentile people. And on Friday, we used to come home and bring home food for the children for the leave of the week. You had to work for it, you had to walk for it, and it was hard. And here, thank God, everything is okay. My children are men. They went to college, they have a good education. I have education, and I worked for it, but I had it, which I could never have in Poland. If I ever dream I'm in Europe, I cry. I don't want to be in Europe. I love this country. God bless this country.
Ellis Island once was teeming with a crowd of immigrants. Hopeful hearts turned toward a land they'd never seen, and they'd wait in endless lines, pray to pass a man's inspection, but even passing through, they found no home for dreams. Ellis Island, land of passage, Ellis Island, silent stone, our people battered now, with fears their fields are sown.
Stay tuned now for WVIZ's International Folk Festival 1992.